How's it going, everyone? Jeff Johnson from the Gazette here with my compatriots, Jeff Linder and K.J. Pilcher. Another edition of the Prep Huddle as we get ready to hit week 6, boys. My goodness, we're well over halfway through. Let's start with maybe newsy item. Looks like we have one school that is done for the season. And it is not Cedar Rapids Jefferson. It's Postville apparently has pulled the plug. Either one of you guys, tell us a little bit more about apparently it was numbers and sickness and everything, right? For Postville?
To be honest, I really don't know. I know that they've had a lot of, trouble fielding a competitive team this year and for the last few years. And I don't know the circumstances beyond the plug pulling.
Well, it's unfortunate, irregardless, that they won't be playing. Postville won't be playing its final 4 games, I guess it is 3 games, 6, 7, 8, 9. All right, I got to count 4.
3. They're playing
3. Okay, that's right. The smaller schools play 8 with the opportunity to play 9 if you don't make the playoffs and want to schedule someone. So you want to talk about last week first? Anything that stood out in either one of your minds? You want to talk about maybe the game that you were at specifically? Jeff, you got to see Iowa City High for the first time. What were your impressions? The boot belongs to the to the east side, right?
Well, you can't spell impressions without impress, and I was impressed by Iowa City High. Very good team. How they've gone from 2-5, I think, last year to 5-0. Really a big difference. This team is playing with a lot of energy on both sides of the ball, and I can't say enough about the progress they've made.
Yeah, and a lot of confidence. Obviously, I think you're seeing that as well. And there's some dudes on that team, as the old phrase goes. You talked to one of them last week, and Ben Keeter, who is going to, as we talked about, is going to do the football wrestling double at Iowa. But it's more than just him. And, they rotate sophomore quarterbacks, Jeff.
Yeah.
And it works.
It works. And the one of them, I can't remember which one it was. I'll look back at my stuff here. One of them really played quite a bit more than the other one last week. And did a really nice job. And, I don't know if they're going to continue the shuttle system, but it seems to be working and worked Friday night.
Let's see. It's Tron and Larson, correct?
It was Tron that was Quentin Tron. It was him that I think he was 9 for 11. I think he was 8 for 9 in the first half. So really ran the offense well.
Yeah, and then when it's weird that I saw him then the week before, and I would say it was Drew Larson that probably got more snaps, including down the stretch and on their last drive when they went and scored the winning touchdown over Dowling. So just looking at the stats from that game, Jeff, Darren Richardson, 200-yard game, 4 touchdowns. Joey Bauska, 450 yards and 2 touchdowns. So
I think about 90 of those yards came on one play.
Is that right?
I think he had the first touchdown, about an 86, 88-yard touchdown run.
Okay.
They got him out and going.
56-7, unusual, score, I guess, lopsided score in that rivalry. So, KJ, you want to talk a little bit about where you were at last Friday night?
Yeah, I was at Van Horn for the 3A District 4 opener for Benton Community in Mount Vernon. Benton Community came away with a 20-13 victory over the Mustangs, and that turns out to be a huge win for the Bobcats. You know, they've won 4 in a row now. They lost their opener to Grinnell. But you know, that's a huge win to get to kick off the district play. Of course, in that district where, you know, you've got Assumption, DeWitt Central, which started the season 3-0. Now dropped a couple games, but you know, and then you've got Vince Schellsburg that has a couple wins and just about 500 as well, and that's who Benton has coming up this week. But the thing that really this was kind of an ebb and flow game a little bit. Benton got out to a 10-0 lead in the first quarter. Mount Vernon came back and took a 13-10 lead, but it really was a drive at the end of the game that sealed things. I think Benton was trailing with 9:21 to go. They got a second field goal from Rotman, their kicker, who was pretty impressive, made a couple of key field goals there. Nathan Rotman, his longest was 35, but they got a stop. It was tied, and they stopped Mount Vernon about the 35-yard. Got a turnover on downs, and then drove 65 yards, just a straight diet of runs. You know, Jacob Brecht and that offensive line really kind of took over. They were able to get seams, and Brecht was able to run downhill. I think the first 3 runs were 9, 7, and 9 yards. And you know, they pulled it off perfectly. That steady stream of runs between tackles, and then when they got to the 15-yard line, it was Colin Buck, the quarterback, that ran a 15-yard keeper, and of course everybody slammed down on that fake in between the tackles, and he was able to roll out and make a couple moves and get in the end zone for the winning touchdown. That drive went 65 yards and burned about 4:40 off the clock. There was only 1:02 left for Mount Vernon, and of course they weren't able to get downfield. But I tell you what, really, really impressed with Benton's offensive and defensive lines. They've got very good skill guys in Book and Brecht. That's a team to keep an eye on, and of course, you know, Mount Vernon's Owen Brozzi and Trenton Pitlick are a very formidable combo quarterback and running back for Mount Vernon. And I think Mount Vernon has Davenport Assumption this week, so they're going to have to bounce back there.
Yeah, it's kind of one of those. You know, you better bounce back, or you might not make the playoffs. Even though you have it seems like Mount Vernon has a pretty good football team. So
right, very competitive district. So you really you got to make sure you get them when you can, because you're not assured of anything.
The game I was at last week, Xavier shuts out Washington here in town 31-0. 7-0 game at halftime in favor of Xavier, and the Saints just kind of owned the second half. And apparently there was a little bit of fire and brimstone speech from Coach Dwayne Schulte at halftime. I kidded him, so was this in the Tom Kapatich, Tom Good vein? And he said similar, but nobody could top those two guys. So those two were known to be pretty fire and brimstone all the way. But KJ, I know you've seen Xavier. You know, solid ball club. You know, just do what Xavier does, right? You know, fundamentally pretty good, and you know, run the football. You know, mostly between the tackles, successfully. A little bit of a run game there, or a pass game as well. That's possible. So, you know, solid ball club. Was pretty impressed, and Washington obviously. Unfortunately, this looks a lot like last season. You know, won the first 2 games. pretty high hopes, and now the Warriors have dropped 3 straight and shutouts. I think scored 7 points only the week before. So Washington's got to figure out some things offensively. A game at Kingston. We're taping this on Thursday afternoon. There is a game at Kingston tonight against Clear Creek Amana, Cedar Rapids Washington and Clear Creek Amana. So doesn't get any easier for the Warriors. I believe CCA kind of climbed into our top 10 this week in Class 4A. So I'm not going to we're not going to recite all the scores around here. Maybe just a couple of interest from last week, or a few from of interest. When you look at Waterloo Columbus beating Cascade 35-13, and that sets up, guys, a big game against Dyersville Beckman this week. Well, what are your thoughts on that? A couple of top 10 teams are going at each other.
Beckman in I think it was week 3 against Monticello. Tremendously impressed with them. They run the ball really, really well with Owen Yards. They'll just try to out-physical you. And I think Columbus is a little bit more throw the ball around. Am I right? And so it'll be kind of a tale of two different philosophies.
I guess we shouldn't expect anything less than a team coached by Mark Atwater, right? I mean, he was known as that tough guy, that tough player when he was at Linmar as an All-Stater, and then his career at Cole as well. He's done a tremendous job with the Blazers.
Was Mark the one that was the quarterback linebacker?
Yeah.
See, he was like one of the first, I think, to have kind of that more QB LB role instead of maybe a D-back that you normally would see. You didn't necessarily see quarterbacks at the time really play a physical role on defense. So yeah, just like you said, JJ, what would you expect from a head coach that was a quarterback linebacker combo?
And it was good. It's good to see his father Larry's back on the sideline with Cole as well as a defensive coach. So obviously Larry was a tremendous high school coach and a longtime defensive coordinator for the Coco Hawks. So and then Jordan, of course, I believe is the older brother of Mark, also was a real good football player at Linmar and Co. So definitely a big time football family and good guys. The Atwaters are. So it's good to see Beckman playing as well as it has so far this season. So we'll run through a few more scores here of interest. Northland continues with its great season so far, beating South Winneshiek 20-6. Nice win for North Tama, 39-29, boys, over St. Ansgar. And yeah, this is the second loss, I think, for St. Ansgar. But anytime you can beat the Saints, that kind of legitimizes you as a football team to me. So I think North Tama is a really, really good football team there in Class A. Looking at it, also the game we talked about last week a little bit, Sigourney Keota with a 20-13 win over Pella Christian. In a battle of a couple of ranked teams. The Cobras just doing what the Cobras do, I guess, just single winging you to death a little bit offensively. So Solon continues to roll 56-0 over West Burlington, and just kind of scrolling through. Lisbon 28-14. That's a ranked team in Class A over a pretty good Wapello club as well. West Liberty 41-35 thriller over Monticello. Iowa City Regina continues to roll 35-7 over Wilton. Marion and Western Dubuque, that was a Western Dubuque 41-0 win. Cedar Falls over Muscatine 42-7. West Delaware continues to play well, 49-14 over Center Point Urbana. Williamsburg, as we talked a lot about last week, has gotten into district play and really got rolling, 48-3 win over Centerville. We mentioned a little bit Clear Creek Amana, which plays Cedar Rapids Washington tonight. It gave Oskaloosa its first loss, 48-9. Impressive performance there for the Clippers. Certainly. Decorah over Mason City, 33-14. An interesting matchup there in district. Vinton Shullsburg with a win, 24-21 over Maquoketa gave Newton its first loss, 24-14, kind of going out of the area there a little bit. So, anything else that caught your attention? I guess OABCIG going out to Western Iowa with that incredibly tough district with a huge win last week. What gave Spirit Lake its first loss, right, guys?
Yeah, there's only one unbeaten left in all of 2A.
How about that? That's it's just and we said that was going to happen. They're just going to keep beating on each other out there. So and that's kind of obviously what's happened this week. Any thoughts? We also, I think there's Davenport North and Solon, is it
City High?
I beg your pardon. Iowa City High and it plays Davenport North tonight, Thursday night. Any thoughts on that CCA and Cedar Rapids Washington game? Obviously, City High will be a pretty prohibitive favorite, but any thoughts on CCA and CRW Thursday night?
I think it's going to be interesting to see the one matchup I really am interested to see is the Washington defense and how they handle Ben Swales a little bit. Ben Swales, kind of a all-purpose quarterback for the Clippers. His averages about 140 yards passing a game. Also is second on the team in rushing behind Gage Freeman. So he's a little bit of a dual threat. Talked to Clippers coach Matt Hattie earlier. He talked about the progression that Swales has had. One of the biggest things is decision making, and he's kind of getting a better grasp on when to tuck and run, when to move the pocket, when to try to take advantage of big plays, and it's been paying off. In addition to his passing, he's had touchdown runs over 45 yards in each of the last two games against, I believe, Oskaloosa and Liberty. So the Washington defense is definitely a strength for the Warriors. It's gonna be interesting to see how they handle what Swales brings to the table, especially with a run pass option.
Then let's turn to Friday night. Then in town, we have a huge game with Cedar Rapids Kennedy hosting Cedar Falls. Cougars, of course, are undefeated. I believe we have them ranked number 2. And Cedar Falls also in our top 10, has a loss from earlier in the season. Jeff, you're gonna be at that game. Maybe give us a little bit of a sneak preview and maybe what to look for there.
Kenny needs to watch out for the trick plays that falls through at Prairie. Big test for Kennedy. I think they're probably their toughest test left. Just looking here at their schedule, 5A Kennedy. If they can get through this one, they should. Win their next 3, and 9-0 would be a heck of a season for them, obviously. Cedar Falls, you saw them against Prairie. You might have a little bit better handle on what to expect in this one. What do you think?
Yeah, Cedar Falls has some really good athletes. Imagine that. It seems to be a yearly thing, but Hunter Jacobson's the quarterback, and he's kind of a dual threat. He can scramble for some yards and also throw it. He's the son of Northern Iowa men's basketball coach Ben Jacobson, of course, and then there's Trey Campbell, an outstanding wide receiver for him. He's got great speed. He's another guy I think that's going to go play basketball in college as well. Just the typical Cedar Falls team has some good athletes, very well coached. To me, it's interesting. Or guys, I don't know what you think, but Kennedy really hasn't established the run all that great so far this season, which is so unusual because it's been such a successful run heavy team, the previous, 3 or 4 seasons. So, especially with those athletes that Cedar Falls can throw out there, I think it's pretty important maybe for Kennedy to establish the running game. What do you think?
Yeah, I think so. I'm just kind of looking here. I think Jazon Williams has had a pretty nice year. Is he up around 400 or 500 yards?
Yeah. But it seems like it's, to me, I guess I've seen Kennedy a couple of times. It's just kind of been a little bit hit and miss that way with the consistency of the run game.
Bunches.
Yeah. That's a good point, KJ. So,
and they've had more of a passing game, so maybe they're just a little bit more balanced.
That's true. And whatever.
I think that's a good point, Lindy. I think especially against Washington, that was one of the things they were really kind of excited about, the fact that they were able to mix things up, and that's when they're at their best. And JJ, I think you're dead on. They need to make sure they establish the run because that's what's going to allow them to open things up. They're starting to get a playmaker with Brendan Lindy. You've got drawn centers. You got a couple other targets. So if they don't get that run going and they end up sitting at, 2nd and 9, 3rd and 7, 3rd and 8, Cedar Falls is too good of a program to be able to thrive in situations like that. So if they don't establish the run, I don't think that passing game is going to be enough to kind of bail them out.
Yeah.
So it could be a long night.
Yeah, 659 yards rushing they've got as a team through 4 games, not 5. So 659 rushing, 653 passing. So that's pretty good balance, and about 4 yards a carry. So it might be a little bit hit and miss, just like you said.
Elsewhere in town, out at Pella, Cedar Rapids Xavier and Pella, and boys, that's just a game that they seem to always meet deep in the playoffs, including a championship game that I think I'll always remember. I think Pella won on the very last play of the game on a pass to win the 3A state championship about 5 years ago or so.
Yeah.
Pella seems to kind of, big win last week. That's an incredibly tough district, as we said. Any thoughts on the Xavier Pella matchup?
I think it's just going to be another really good ball game. I think it'll be a physical game. Probably go down to the wire. Might come down to the defenses.
Can we say slobber knocker on our podcast?
There you go. Hey, there's always room. Always room for the word slobber knocker.
I think that's what we're going to see. I think it's going to be one of those typical Xavier Pella slugfests.
Elsewhere in town, we've got Marion is at a very good Waverly Shell Rock team trying to rebound from a loss last week. Cedar Rapids Prairie on the road against Waterloo West. The Hawks, of course, coming off a non-game last week, had the open week with Ottumwa forfeiting because of COVID and low numbers. And speak of that double, Ottumwa and Cedar Rapids Jefferson play each other at Ottumwa tomorrow night, Friday night as well. Interested to, Western Dubuque, Decorah. I think will be a good matchup, right, boys? On tomorrow night, Friday night. Just kind of looking at Solon's at Washington, Iowa, Mount Vernon and Davenport Assumption. At Mount Vernon, that's a game that I'll be at. Iowa City West hosts Davenport Central. We told you Jeff will be where Jeff will be. KJ, where are you going to be tomorrow night?
Williamsburg. I will be at Mid Prairie Williamsburg.
Okay.
So I'll be down there. The records may not be real exciting, 2-2, 1-3, but I think we'll have a pretty competitive game actually between those two.
And we talked about on the 4 downs. Hopefully you read that either in the newspaper or online. Linmar and Southeast Polk tomorrow night. The Lions, of course, have gotten off to a surprising 5-0 start, and kind of a litmus test at Southeast Polk, which has lost a game, but is still certainly one of the best, if not the best, teams in 5A. In the question, I guess KJ asked us on the 4 downs was, is this a true indication of, will this be a true indication of if Eastern Iowa has caught up to Central Iowa at the big school level? So what say you guys on that?
I think I kind of rode the fence a little bit. I said yes and no. And I think the biggest reason is, the regular season only shows us so much. I think we've all seen that the postseason's a different ballgame. So that'll be the true test. But right now you've had City High with a win over maybe a little bit of a dowling program. If Linmar is competitive, I think it might show that the programs in Eastern Iowa have caught up a little bit. If it isn't, but you have to take it with a grain of salt with that postseason point. If they get, if they get handled, or if it's not a competitive game, I think we're still in the same situation where those top 5-6 programs in, Central Iowa are still, a level above what we have in Eastern Iowa. And, the interesting thing is the 3 unbeaten teams in Class 5A are in our area, with Kennedy, Linmar, and City High. So we'll see if there's anything to those starts for those 3 programs when Linmar heads over there, assuming everybody's healthy, everybody's on the field, and it would be a good gauge.
And I think Prairie and Southeast Polk still have to play as well, correct?
Correct.
Okay. So, I mean, like KJ said, I mean, I don't think you can take any true conclusion out of just one football game, but, maybe a little body of work there where it's maybe 3 or 4 games and somehow Eastern Iowa is able to, to compete and maybe win a couple, 3 of those games. And, maybe that's a trend. So I still think, just my opinion, you got to beat them in the postseason. I mean, that's where it's most important, and that's where everyone, is playing its best. So that's just, I guess, my opinion. Jeff, you've been going through the RPIs on this, in 5A. What's your opinion, and maybe talk a little bit about what you've been able to, to put together when it comes to the RPI in 5A.
Well, the 3 teams that you talked about, 3 unbeaten teams, Kennedy, City High, Linmar. Right now they're 1, 2, and 4. City High's 4. Southeast Polk jumped over them this week, but because they're 5-0, their strength of schedule is a little lower, just because the teams that they're beating have more losses, because it's just simple math. I mean, they're getting more losses because they're getting beat by the teams that are 5-0. So I think what's going to happen is, I wouldn't be surprised if maybe like the Southeast Polk, even if the Eastern Iowa teams finish 9-0, it wouldn't surprise me at all if the Southeast Polk or an Ankeny ends up as the number 1 RPI team here within a couple, 3 weeks, and certainly by the time we get to week 9, just because of strength of schedule. They're playing so many good teams, and loss or 2 is not going to hurt. I think Kennedy, if they would go 9-0, and possibly City High as well, they might be able to host to the semifinals, two rounds, round 1 and round 2. So, we'll see. I think it's going to take 9-0 for one of those teams to get a top 4 seed.
How about the rest of the playoffs? Jeff, I'll go back to you here. Maybe tell the folks if they're not aware how the field's set. For 4A on down, and as you mentioned a little earlier here in our podcast, the smaller classes they're just about done with the regular season, getting 8 games instead of 9.
Right. 4A and 3A are the same. The top 2 in each district are automatic qualifiers, and then it's the top 4 statewide via RPI. So I'm going to make a prediction here. City of Liberty is 0-5 right now. I'm going to say they win their last 4, make the playoffs. That's a 17 out of that district. The strength of the meat grinder part of their schedule is over. They should be favored in their last 4. If they win all 4, they're going to get an automatic bid. Same scenario in 3A, 2A and 1A. I believe it's just top 4 teams out of every district, right? For 32 teams, 32 teams qualifying. I think it's the same with Class A. 8-player is 32 teams, top 3 plus out of each district plus 2 teams statewide. That I think that's the old 17-point rule instead of RPI. So I don't know why that's different than the others, but it is. So yeah, 2 weeks to go. We've got a few teams that have already clinched playoff berths in the small schools. I think Lisbon is in, Belle Plaine is in, and we're going to get a lot more 8-player A, and maybe some more 1A and 2A teams that are going to qualify this weekend.
Boy, that's an interesting point about Iowa City Liberty, and just kind of looking at the schedule. I mean, you hit it right on the head, Jeff. It's something when you look at the non-district games. Iowa City High, Linn-Mar, Western Dubuque, Clear Creek Command, and North Scott. Holy cow, that's running the gauntlet. And then when you talk about the rest of the district play here, it's Mount Pleasant, Fort Madison, Burlington, and Clinton. And not saying that any of those games will be easy, because they won't. But as you mentioned, I mean, that's certainly winnable. So a lot to play for there for Coach Harrison, his first year up at Iowa City Liberty. Moved in from
this is 5-0. They must have a fine ball club. Burlington's 4-1. Certainly, neither of those teams have played the schedule that Liberty has, so those won't be easy games. But I think they're certainly winnable games.
Guys, another thing I'm going to piggyback on that. KJ does such a great job with the 4 questions each week is kind of our midseason MVPs individual wise. And, I'd kind of like to have you guys talk a little bit about what you picked there. And then I'll tell everybody what I said as well. Who are your, midseason, quote unquote, individual MVPs?
I took the easy route. I went with Eddie Burgess, Mr. Touchdown.
I love that name, Mr. Touchdown. I think that's what we should just call him from now on, Mr. Touchdown.
Why not?
Enjoy the show.
KJ?
Well, obviously, Burgess is an excellent pick, but I just thought I'd go just in a different direction and figured somebody else would touch on Burgess. I went with Independence's Marcus Beatty. And one of the reasons why is because, the team is ranked high. They're off to a great start. But just looking at how much he produces for that team, just kind of looking, I think he accounts for like 92% of their rushing yards, and a similar percentage of their rushing touchdowns. He's like 2/3 of their entire offensive yardage production, and 60% of their offensive scores. I think the team as a whole is ranked 6th in they've scored 191 points here in 5 games, and he's produced a little more than half of that. I mean, that's just exceptional. He leads 11-player football with 1,262 rushing yards, and that's good for 2nd overall in the entire state in all classes, 3rd in all-purpose yardage, including 8 players. So I went with Marcus Beatty.
Nathan Ford, who's helps post and kind of produce quote unquote our show, went with Ben Keeter of City High and pointed out that his influence on that team, both defensively and offensively, has been very significant. And obviously we know that City High has really had a turnaround season and is an undefeated ball club. So I thought that was another good answer. And I just kind of went with Gabe Capriva, North Tama. Leads all of the state actually in passing yards with over 1,400. And that includes, the 8-player game where you tend to get a few more yards that way. And, he's had, I think his 15-4 is his touchdown interception ratio. And then he also leads North Tama in rushing and has another 8 rushing touchdowns. So, and that's a team, again, that's undefeated and kind of come out of nowhere to really be a very good football team. So I think those are 4 pretty good picks, boys.
Yeah.
Honestly. Maybe one more question and then we'll kind of wrap this up. Guys, if you had to look at each class, what do you think, maybe top to bottom, or which team or which class has the most high quality teams? Maybe what class do you think is the toughest? That way.
I'd say 2A.
2A?
I think so.
Okay, why is that, Jeff?
I just think it's so deep and there's so many quality teams, especially out west. We've talked about this before, the Spirit Lakes, the Southeast Valleys, the OABCIGs, those teams out there are excellent. Unity, the Lyon County schools, then you got Williamsburg, Waukon over here. I just think that's a really deep field. I think that's really going to be an entertaining class once we get into the postseason.
KJ, do you have a favorite class, so to speak?
Boy, I mean, I guess right now, if maybe not from top to bottom, but certainly 1 through 5, 1 through 6. I go with 1A.
Okay.
When you're looking at Van Meter, Underwood, Regina, Sigourney, Keota, in the top 4 spots in our rankings, or at least mine. I think those are 4 pretty amazing teams. You look at Dyersville Beckman and what they're building up to. You got West Sioux in there and Dyke New Hartford. Columbus is a top 10 team, so we'll see more of what Columbus and Beckman have to offer when they play each other. I just think 1A for that level has a lot of talented teams that could come out on top.
Yeah, that's probably where I would go to, KJ. I kind of agree with you, but I get Jeff's point about just the equality of all the teams because they keep beating up on each other in 2A. And how about 8 player as well? I'm sitting here, I'm trying to count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 12 teams that are undefeated in 8-man right now. That seems like a real high number to me. So I think maybe the quality in 8 players has been pretty good. I think you can look at the top of 3A and say, or 4A, excuse me, and say that's a pretty good class as well. 3A as well. When I think you look at what do you have? 6 teams that are undefeated. You have your Harlans, your BHRBs, which have just rolled. They've rolled through the regular season so far. Humboldt's been a real nice surprise. Independence, as KJ talked about earlier. Solon, we know, is a terrific football team. Nevada is 5-0 as well. So, and West Delaware, we haven't talked about West Delaware, 4-1. That's a really good football team. Davenport Assumption is at 3-2 is a really good football team. So, I might change my mind. I might go 3A. How about that? So, but there is a lot, and it's good to see. And maybe this has come about because of the added class. What do you think, guys? I don't know.
It certainly could be a be a reason why, some of those teams are together, isn't that what it's supposed to do when creating that
Yeah,
added class to be able to get good competitive
Yeah.
classes together, right?
Yeah.
Kind of separate those teams that maybe can't compete in a class above or whatever, just because of size and everything like that. I think that's maybe that could be a byproduct of it, and maybe one of the things that adding another class was meant to do.
Guys, if you had to pick right now through 5 weeks, which team and which class, just pick one team from any class, are you most confident that's going to win a state championship at this point?
Oh, wow.
I go North Scott.
Yeah, and you've seen North Scott, so
Yeah. I just like their defense so much and a couple other playmakers that even though it's just a 12-point game with Xavier, I thought North Scott was in control the whole time. So that's one team that I guess I'm confident on at this point.
JJ?
man, that's tough. I think Southeast Polk. I'm really going to go with Southeast Polk because I think the loss that it had was to, without one of its top players, as we've talked about. I am very confident that Southeast Polk is going to somehow negotiate its way through the gauntlet of Central Iowa in the playoffs and prove that maybe Central Iowa is still a little bit superior. So that might be a little off the wall pick, but that's what I'm going with. Jeff, how about you?
I think I say Van Meter. I think they're
Van Meter, good call.
heads and tails above everybody in 1A at this point.
Yeah, Van Meter is been just outstanding. Beating up teams in higher classes that are good football teams. That's a good call, Jeff. Can I change mine?
Sure.
No?
Sure. I'll tell you, Williamsburg's 20-0 loss to Van Meter doesn't look that bad.
Right. That's exactly right. And yeah, Van Meter might be it. I mean, you're right. I mean, I'm just looking at the scores here, Jeff. You've changed my mind here. Earlham, which is only lost 42-0. Van Meter wins 20-0. Williamsburg. Winterset is a one-loss team. That's to Van Meter, 28-13. I mean, those are all, and now the last 2 weeks they've won 77-0 and 70-0. So they're beating up teams in higher classes. So yeah, Van Meter. It's got to be Van Meter. So, all right, where are you going to be at Friday night, boys? Tell us.
Hey, before we get into that,
yeah,
can we play a little bit of who's got more?
Go for it.
Test you guys just a little bit. We haven't done that yet this year.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna start out a little simple here. Who has more, Marcus Beatty all-purpose yards or Gabe Capriva passing yards?
I am gonna say it's 14. I think that Marcus has more all-purpose yards.
Okay. Lindy?
Yeah, I think Beatty as well.
Marcus Beatty has 1,387 all-purpose yards.
Oh, so it's Capriva.
Gabe Capriva, 1,458. So, yeah, he's put up some good numbers there as well. We've talked about joked about walk on a little bit. They seem to be a 2-point conversion team. Who has more, walk on PATs or Starmont fumble recoveries?
I'm going to go with Starmont fumble recoveries.
Okay.
I'll go the other direction. I'll go with Waukon PATs.
Okay. Starmont is one of the leaders, top 5 in fumble recoveries with 11, but Walk-On is 15 of 18 for PA attempts. So I don't know if I've ever seen Walk-On here in recent years with that many point after attempts, but you know, that's 2-point U. Okay. Here's another one. Which is more Sigourney Kyoto passing attempts or Eastern Valley's Connor Groover touchdown passes?
I'll go with Groover.
Yeah, I think he's got more.
So you guys are
agree.
going with Connor Groover passing
Yep.
touchdowns over
Yep.
Sigourney Kyoto. Of course, we know the spinner back deal, but I was surprised to see this being a higher number. Sigourney Kyoto has thrown 27 passes this year. Connor Groover, 23 touchdown passes and 26 total touchdowns for Eastern Valley. Certainly a great number for Groover, but I didn't expect Sigourney Kyoto to have 27 passing attempts.
0-3. Come on. Man, I'm terrible.
So this one's, we talked about strength of schedule and stuff like that. Whose opponents have more wins? Iowa City Liberty or West Des Moines Dowling? So their opponents' win total.
Okay. I'm trying to think. Dowling has played. Who's Dowling played? Jeff, what did you guess?
I'm fairly confident it's Liberty.
Okay. I'm trying to think who Dowling has played so far. I'm going to go with Dowling.
The correct answer is Iowa City Liberty. Dowling opponents have 28 wins. I believe they're like 28-14. Liberty, this is pretty amazing. Their opponents' winning percentage is .733. They're 33-12 overall. Liberty has not played one team with a losing record. All 5 teams they've played are 500 or better. And they're at a 16.8 point differential with those opponents. So, like Linder said, if they run the table, they're going to face a different caliber opponent maybe here in the coming weeks. They might be a little bit better than what the record kind of shows for them right now, just given that tough strength of schedule that they've had. So.
And I will add this because I just did a little research here. You talked about toughest schedule, KJ. When it comes to winning percentage of opponents, the 2 worst are Linn-Mar and Iowa City High. How about that? In 5A. I'm just saying 5A. Iowa City High's opponents have a 333 winning percentage, 15-30, and Linn-Mar's is 16-29.
Wow. So,
and they're both undefeated.
And actually, that's all 9 opponents they'll play. That's not just the 5 teams they've played already.
Okay, there you go. Oh, that's a good thought. And Kennedy is 17-28, also an undefeated team. So, I don't know. Does that stuff mean anything? Who knows?
Good.
You got to beat the teams that are on your schedule. That's all I know. So,
right.
All right, tomorrow night, boys. Tell us where you're going to be at.
I'll be at Kingston.
I will be at Williamsburg for the Mid Prairie Raider game. follow me at KJ Pilcher on Twitter.
And at JT Linder on Twitter and at JEJE66. I will be in the hopping town of Mount Vernon for Mount Vernon and Davenport Assumption. Of course, we'll have other coverage as well. Please check out the Green Gazette because it's awesome. That's online. Check out all of our online coverage. Nathan Ford will be hard at work again tomorrow night, putting together a package talking about, video talking about what happens tomorrow night. Gentlemen, I think it's going to be another good night weather-wise. We're hitting 100% with that for the most part right now. So
Yeah, been very good.
enjoy the games, everyone. Please read us at thegazette.com. We're doing I think a tremendous job with high school football this fall under kind of adverse circumstances. So check out our work, please, at thegazette.com or iowaprepsports.com or in the newspaper itself. Pick up a copy. Thank you for following us, guys. Great job as always. Nathan, thank you. And I'll let KJ take us out with our favorite phrase.
Hey! Keep your head on a swivel. Let's go!